All right, welcome back to the Wheel of Reads book reviews. Normally I do sci-fi and fantasy, but every once in a while I like to mix it up and I add something else in. Sometimes it's just some random thrill book. I do enjoy things like Stephen King. Also, I do enjoy some nonfiction type books, and every once in a while I'll do historical fiction. So this is a pretty interesting story about how I did this one. Was trying to figure out different types of books to read, and I was, looking through on actually Goodreads historical fiction books and just what are the most popular ones, and trying to find ones that I have not read that are really popular. So this probably has been reviewed a bunch of times, but this is not a book I would normally ever pick up on my own. The book I decided to read last time was Memoirs of a Geisha. I'd never seen the movie. Didn't know much about the book. So kind of went in blind. Of course, I've heard of it. Know it's about geisha. I know what geisha are. I was a history major in college. Did a whole entire semester on the history of Japan. Even though we don't cover geisha that much, we're covering emperors and different government factions throughout Japan's history. But I at least knew a lot about the culture of Japan going into this. So, without further ado, let's jump right into this review. Without giving away too many spoilers, let me just talk about, the way it's written. It's written as like basically a reporter taking down the notes from another person's accounts and then writing out the story. So almost like, and that's how it kind of starts. And then it turns to, almost like a first person, like almost like a diary, going through the different highlights of their life and talking about their life story from a geisha. For those of you who don't know what geisha are, if you've never seen the movie or you never heard of the term geisha, it's hard to explain because it's nothing you can really compare to in Western culture. They were entertainment in Japan and dating back for a long time and still technically exist today, the geisha system. They were, studied in etiquette and pouring tea and entertaining men mostly through traditional dance. And when I say traditional dance, nothing like anything like a gentleman's club here in America, which is not very gentlemanly. It is very, very a classy type thing and very much for the aristocrats and the higher level society, owners of companies, large military people, people in government, things of that nature. They would go to what's called a tea house, where they did serve tea, but the point was not for the tea; it was for the geishas. They were supposed to be, beautiful women, normally young, and like I said, they would perform, and they had, ceremonies, kind of like almost like plays, where they would perform annually at these festivals, and we're some revered to a certain extent in the Japanese society. Also, another thing about Asian culture, especially going back, not so much today, in Asian and Eastern culture, having multiple wives is definitely frowned upon. That's not something that you see a lot of. Maybe in some older Chinese type of text, but having mistresses or concubines is very, very commonplace within the culture. So geisha often wore mistresses as well. The elite would pay to, a geisha to be their mistress. And it is what they said, kind of like almost like having a wife or a girlfriend, except there's no contract and there's no, and you're not married. Meaning that there's no, I guess, financial obligation to that. Besides the financial obligation to the mistress, there's money there, but there's no expectation, and it's not, you can just break it off like a girlfriend. Sometimes they would actually live in the house with the wife, and that was very commonplace, especially you go back generations in the culture. So, with that being said, let's go into Memoirs of a Geisha. Thoughts about the book. So I'm going to kind of take it from two different lenses. One from the cultural aspect and just learning about some of the periphery, subplots, or I wouldn't say subplots, but themes in the book. When you get into the culture of Japan and learning about the richness of the culture and at least this part of that world, fascinating book. Even going into some of the different ways that the culture of these women would connive and try to get favors, and then the underlying historical events that are happening just are very, very fascinating. Enjoyed that aspect of it. The storyline itself, yeah, it reads like a crappy high school love tale, or not even love tale, like diary. And I hate to be a Debbie Downer when it comes to that stuff, but it just is. I didn't enjoy the actual overall storyline. It wasn't a love story. It was a biopic about this lifestyle. The lifestyle of a geisha is kind of gut wrenching at times. Sometimes it's just downright petty and hard to read, just because it sickens you that people even act that way. Just very immature. And I guess you can consider it a chess game, but it seems like, high school girl, mean girl type chess. It's not really my cup of tea. Didn't like that aspect. Once I got past all that, and that might be for you. And if it is, go for it. You might like it. For me, I could do without it. It didn't fascinate me at all when it came to that kind of stuff. And you can correct me, say, Alan, you know nothing about this stuff. And that's fine. I'm not an expert when it comes to this part of Japanese culture, or know really much at all about it. So that part was fascinating, just learning about the culture aspects of it, and also historical significance of a lot of the events that are happening around the story. That fascinated me. But the actual overall story itself, meh. So if I give it a rating, between 1 and 10, being 1 being downright horrible, 10 being the most greatest book I've ever read, probably give it a solid 4. And that's just really because I didn't like it. And maybe it's just because it's not for me. Probably won't do another book like this again. Might still do historical fictions. There's plenty of them I do like out there. Just like I said, this isn't for me. This might be your favorite book. And I don't mean to offend by saying that. So let's go into spoiler talk. So spoilers. Yeah. Kind of talk about the premise of the book and stuff that kind of was a little heart-wrenching or tough to get through. It starts with this, a young girl in a fishing village with her dad as a fisherman, mom's sick. Mom ends up getting diagnosed basically terminal. Father's not going to be able to afford, the girl, and some random business guy comes and says, "Hey, I can give your girls a better life," and pretty much sells them into slavery. In that part of the world, I say pretty much sells them into slavery, both her and her sister. Goes to stay, with who she calls mother, in basically a geisha house, in a district of Kyoto, which used to be the capital of Japan. Kyoto, right there. That's where Kyoto is. Businessmen from all over the world. It talks about how she entertained for lots of different people when she became a geisha. But when you started out, she's basically just a house servant, a maid. And the idea was maybe eventually you become a geisha. But the chances are that you'll just be a housemaid for the rest of your life. Her sister wasn't pretty enough. So basically she just got sold into being a prostitute. Not even, which some people think geishas are prostitutes, which I guess at surface level you could call it that. But it goes so much deeper than that. It's not just your normal prostitute. It's more, they are mistresses for hire, but it's a long-term committed relationship, and you don't get to necessarily pick who that person is you're going to be a mistress of. So it does sometimes seem like prostitution, but it's not like a woman of the night where you're going through like 10 men. That's not what, or 20 or 30. I don't know how many people go through, but that's not what a geisha is. A geisha is more meant to be an entertainer. And they get trained, they go to school. It goes to that, her going to school, learning how to play musical instruments, learning how to dance, learning how to pour tea, and learning how to talk and be proper, to escort them in to the bathroom, to different areas of the tea houses, things like that. Eventually she gets in a lot of trouble. She becomes enemies with like the main geisha in the household, which is Hatsumono, I think is how you pronounce it, who is just a mean girl, kind of a really crappy character, not written well. I mean, I guess it can be realistic. I guess people are like that. When the book starts, she's like 14. I guess Hatsumono is in her 20s. Maybe that's just the way the culture is, but you'd think by at that point you wouldn't be like that. But maybe if you grew up in it, I don't know. Someone can maybe leave a comment and say like, no, that's just the way it is in the culture. I'm just taking it from an American lens, and here I am, just a stupid American talking about something I don't know. So, and you guys can let me know and inform me. I'm happy to learn more about it. But to me, it was just, like I said, just didn't like any of it. That aspect of it, fast forward, you get into, the chairman of this electrical company, who she's like madly kind of, in love with, keeps his handkerchief. The second guy, is it Nano-san or something like that? He is a war veteran. He was, disfigured during a previous war and lost an arm and had, basically, burnt marks on the side of his body and face, who really, really just took to her, fell in love with her, but had lots of money. So, eventually another geisha who's, Mimosa. I'm horrible with Japanese names. Takes her in under her wing, trains her to be a geisha. She becomes one of the most popular geishas in all of Japan. And then World War II breaks out, and she pretty much, they shut down the whole geisha districts, and she has to go work to sew parachutes for the war and all stuff like that. And eventually goes back and ends with her getting with the chairman. So yeah, and then moves to America and sets up her own tea house in America, in New York City, and lives the rest of her life out there. Happy ending. So I'm not going to go too much into plot details other than the brief overview I just did, just because if you're in this part, you've already read the book. So things I like that are spoiler filled. Like I said, I just like the idea of the culture aspects. Learning about this, the etiquette and the different ways they interact with each other and the different characters, and how they interact. But when you get into actually the drill down into actually the way the characters interact with each other, that's where it just falls flat for me. It seems just smutty. I can see why people would like it. But it's not for me. So if you enjoyed it, let me know in the comments. Say like, oh, it's the greatest book in the entire world. I've never seen the movie. Is the movie any better? Should I watch the movie? I don't know. Would I enjoy it? I don't know. I don't know. So let me know. It'll be a while before I do another one of these type of books. Next one I'm going to do is The Way of the Kings by Brandon Sanderson. So back to fantasy. But for right now, this is kind of the most awkward review I had to do on a book. So might not go into this part of the genre for a long, long time. But I do like reading different stuff. So go ahead and make suggestions as well. Would love to suggest any kind of book in the entire world. I'd say this is my favorite book in the entire world. And I might crap on it. And don't be offended if I do, unless you're the author, and then you might have the right to be offended. If you just read it and like it, please don't be offended if I don't like it. My feelings and opinions are different than yours. But yeah, let me know what you think of Memoirs of Geisha if you've read it. Let me know if you should watch the movie. Let me know what else I should read. And subscribe. Until next time, guys. Peace.